All right. Hello and welcome back, everyone. This is Ben Chiriboga, the Chief Growth Officer here at Nexel, coming to you with another This Legal Life. I'm sitting down today with Tim Duffy, who is an executive coach specializing in mindfulness, to talk about the state of stress in professionals, specifically lawyers, and how meditation can really help. I guess that's where we're going to get to. Tim, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me on, Ben. It's such a delight to connect with you, a person who I also know has a very deep meditation practice himself. This is going to be fun.
Yes, I'm excited about this. So, you know, I, as a bit of a background, we're recording this. People who follow me know that I had just gone on a silent meditation retreat for my 40th birthday. And somehow, post that sort of retreat center, I had posted about it on LinkedIn. Then I had shared it with my network, and you and I came together post that. So in some ways, I think that this is interesting ground to kind of like lay this around. But let me ask you before we get into your background: does this happen to you a lot? Do you get connected through the network, be it the LinkedIn or otherwise, through people who, I don't know, see something, see something similar, or doing something similar? Does this happen to you often?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lovely kind of result of people kind of coming out in the world as people who care about consciousness, about meditation, and know that you can kind of hack your awareness into a place of optimization. So you can be a better parent, you can be a better partner, you can be a better worker. Especially on LinkedIn, folks are looking for productivity tools. And of course, this is the ultimate productivity tool. But by the way, you and I are introduced by a guy named Roy Sexton,
Yes.
our mutual friend, who's also a lovely human being and has a deep well of, love and consciousness. And also he's kind of a badass in his life and career. So, yeah.
Shout out to Roy. Everybody who is in the legal marketing and business development, the heroes over there in the business of law will know Roy without a doubt. Former president of the LMA, and Tim, you were on his podcast as well, right? I know that, and so you had the opportunity. So let's try to add on to the good work that Roy, I know, has absolutely done with you. So why don't we start a little bit with your background? You weren't always an executive coach teaching mindfulness to Fortune 500 executives, legal professionals, anybody with a high stakes job in today's market. You were doing something else for a couple of years, and in a sense, that sort of brought you to where you're at today, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So my background is in the entertainment industry. I'm a former network executive, two-time network executive, ran some of the larger unscripted divisions at both Sony and at Viacom in the 2000s. Launched my first startup in 2013, which was a production company specializing in food and comedy and travel shows. I was blessed to be nominated for 9 Emmys and 5 James Beard Awards as a director and a producer. I won 2 Emmys. In the background of that aspect of my life was this operating system that was populated by stress and anxiety and depression. And especially in the early days of my career, I would show up on the job like white knuckling my way through my workday, pretending to be the guy that had it all together. But on the inside, I was just brittle and crumbling. And so I tried all kinds of different interventions, from drugs and alcohol to, various kinds of therapy. And I kind of like was dabbling in meditation in the background, but it was more like, a meditation practice. When I would meditate for 25 minutes, it was like the same thing as smoking a joint or something. I would feel relief for a brief period of time, but then the waves of these big emotions would show back up. And so hitting rock bottom in my own internal world where I couldn't take it anymore, I decided for some reason, meditation needed to be something that I should incorporate into my daily life. So I found a teacher And this was in the late 2000s. And within 6 months, my entire life shifted. Started a daily practice, and within a few years, I started actually integrating the practice into my businesses, and I started teaching corporate meditation as a service to folks throughout the entertainment industry. And while I'm running these businesses, I'm also kind of getting these phone calls from executives throughout the business going, hey, I just got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. Can you help? Or, hey, I'm going through this horrible divorce. Or, hey, I have to lay off a bunch of people. And I would say yes, and yes, and yes. Gradually over time, as my businesses started to kind of get bigger and blossom, I wanted to say yes more and more to helping other people, but I had to keep my businesses flowing. And then the pandemic hits. We were nominated for 4 Emmys for a Netflix series we had on the air called Fresh, Fried, and Crispy, a show about, it was like our love letter to fried food. And as Emmy season kind of starts happening, the world is falling apart around us. And all I could think about was, I don't care about this.
Yeah.
All I care about is wanting to help all these people who are suffering. So that shift happened within me. And the decision at that point was made to start to lay the groundwork for a full commitment to being of service to others. And that's what brings us together today.
It's an incredible journey. I think lots of people come to a therapeutic practice or something that's worked for them through their own stress, through their own damage, through their own reconciliation in some sense. When you look back at that time now, before we get into sort of the practicing and sort of the state of stress, which I know we're going to sort of talk about today, when you look back at your own sort of white knuckling at that point in time, what were some of the, let's say, some of the shifts that hadn't been made just yet? Of course, we can talk about meditation as a psychotechnology, and we're going to probably use that word a lot. Everybody knows about information technology and software, but in some sense, you can categorize meditation as a psychotechnology, taking your, let's say, your mind as kind of a tool or a state of matter that you can use on. But going back to the question, where were you at that had to be unlocked, or what were some of the patterns that were keeping you in that state? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes complete sense. It's a great question. In short, I was identifying with the waves of emotionality as if they were who I was. So when a wave of anxiety would show up, it would consume the entirety of my awareness, and it would feed back on itself. And I would create a construct of being where I layer story on story on story on top of the physical sensations and the initial thought patterns of my own anxiety. And next thing you know, I've created this invisible cage all around me that has layers and layers and layers, like an onion, but I'll come back to the wave metaphor to keep it simple. Yeah. I would identify as the waves of sadness or anxiety or bliss and happiness or drunkenness or highness or love. And I think the fundamental shift that meditation taught me was that it's the identification with the waves that creates a constriction and creates a lack of flexibility with regard to the wide open space through which the wave is moving. We are the ocean. Our minds are in constant movement as a wide open, topless, bottomless, edgeless ocean. And these waves are simply just made of ocean. So the question then becomes like, well, who am I? If I identify as the waves, then I'm in a constant state of upheaval and churning. And the more I identify with the waves, the more my seas become stormy. So the job of the meditator is to take the backward step and begin to notice the arising and the passing of the waves and remain uninvolved, remain imperturbed by the bigness of the waves or the smallness or the deliciousness.
Yeah.
but rather just to be fully alive in the spaciousness of it all.
Mm. For those of us who are going to be with you this entire journey on this podcast, at the end, we're going to do a quick 4-minute meditation that you did with me whenever we were getting to know each other. That was really powerful. So for everybody breaking the fourth wall here, hopefully you stay with us and listen right to the end. Let's come back from the waves, and we're going to get to that, because the best I have found over the last 10, 15 years of meditating, the best way is just to do it. And unfortunately, just do it and then keep on doing and try to get some instruction and then do it. So we'll get into that at the end of the podcast. Let's talk, maybe shift a little bit from your personal stress level and your personal circumstances that led you to the psychotechnology to just the general stress level of, let's say, modern life today, and especially with professionals. Everybody who's listening to this will know that work today tends to be very high cognitive stress, in part because of the multifaceted, multi-pronged grab for our attention, be it the switching costs that are involved today, be it to make it a little abstract, highly fluid environments where decision making has to be made without a lot of inputs. And even though we have a lot of data, it tends to be that we always need a little bit more than the thing that we need, something like this. And executives today, specifically, and leaders, are supposed to be able to handle this kind of VOCA environment, if you know that acronym, and excel in this. But what's your take? You deal with everybody today who are coming with you to you, either because they're overwhelmed and stressed, or maybe they're looking for a better way to do it. So what is the state of stress that you feel whenever you talk to professionals today?
Yeah, you just explored the kind of gamut of why folks come to me. Some folks come because they're at peak suffering or fear. Other folks come because they're like, there seems to be a better way. And this psychotechnology, as you've referenced, is a beautiful way to describe it. I could not agree more. This is 2,600 years worth of psychotechnology that modern neuroscience over the past 30 or 40 years has finally started to grant its blessing.
Yes. Right.
Oh yeah, they're right. We start to see neuroplasticity, right? Flexibility of mind. Sure. We can actually physically change the structure of our patterns in our minds through taking deliberate action. So folks come to me in a lot of different ways, but the vast majority of them are all coming with the same basic pattern of, I'll call it sluggishness and lack of optimization with regard to their internal world. So, and again, you hit the nail right on the head. In our attention economy, where we're being pulled this way and that, not only do we hop on the laptop, but then we've got the cell phone right there, and then we also have to respond to the tweets and our IG posts and our Facebook posts and all of that, while simultaneously running in the background is our Teams notifications, right? And who's got the green light? Who's got the red light? Oh, wow. Do I need to keep my green light on right now, even though it's 9:00 at night? And so here we are in this post world where we're like even more fully immersed in the digital sphere, and our minds can be paralleled to the world of a laptop computer. When you turn on your laptop computer, all of a sudden, and for some reason today's version of your laptop is sluggish and slow, you take that backward step and you recognize, oh my gosh, I've got 50 different tabs. I've got like 7 different programs, right? And you start to recognize, well, what's happening is, even though I'm not engaging with all of this simultaneously, it is simultaneously pulling from the energy stores of the system itself of the laptop computer. The mind is just like that. So folks show up to this practice and they want to be optimized, and the first thing we do is say, the reason why you're feeling sluggish and slow is because you have all these open tabs that are constantly running in the background of your operating system. You've got all these open programs. So the first step is to simply just notice that's why I am sluggish and slow, because my cognitive load is constantly churning through what has been estimated as a to-do list for the average professional. Open tabs, a to-do list of over 150 different open tabs, undone tasks. If I were to ask you in your audience to just think about this for a second, could you sit down and write down an exhaustive list of the to-do list in your head of all the items that remain undone? And the truth is, this is shockingly easy to do, because it's like, oh my gosh, I need to get back to my boss. Oh my gosh, I didn't work out this morning. Oh my God. Yeah. It just starts to layer. I need to lose 10 pounds. I need to eat more calcium, whatever the case might be, all these open tabs. So the first step is to go, you're overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed. You're not okay. I'm not okay. And that's okay. It's okay. In this together. Start there. And then the next step is, well, let's do the reboot. Let's close out all the open tabs. Let's re-optimize the spaciousness of our operating system, the mind itself. And in order to do that, we have very specific psychotechnologies that we can explore through meditation.
Yeah. Let's, I think anybody working today, especially if you're pulled in lots of directions, will resonate with this. What about this, the layer underneath? You know, there's been a lot of talk, mumblings, let's say, around the idea of just the existential nature. I don't want to go so existential on this, but this is what we do this podcast for: the existential nature of work and its relationship with life, etc. I mean, I'm just trying to get a survey. You know, if this was a survey, it was like, I feel stressed out behind my mind. I don't know how to deal with it. I know that I need to deal with it. And option C, I'm having an existential breakdown with my relationship with work and meaning. You know, to what extent? I mean, to what extent? Maybe that's just the human condition, but you know, in some sense, to what extent do people come with you today in that context? You know, we're recording this on July 22nd. Lots of things have happened. Everybody in the Western world will basically know this. You know, to what extent does this sort of pop up in the average professional and the average leader? Because it's a salient question for me. If these are the people who are leading organizations and relating, well, then, you know, it's an interesting data point in and of itself, right?
Yeah. You know, everybody talks these days about emotional intelligence. And we have, you know, wonderful executive coaches out there in the world who are talking about mindset training, emotional intelligence training. If they're not using this magical tool called mindfulness, the vast majority of them are just scratching the surface of what's available with optimization, right? We can place a phrase and repeat the phrase over and over in our minds as like a way to change our mindset. And that's wonderful. But to create deep lasting change, we actually need that phrase and that attitude to drop down deep into the present moment of the person who is meeting the present moment from a place of, I don't feel so great, right? I'm suffering. There is a reason why we suffer. And that's where this psychotechnology is just really rooted in beautiful human emotional intelligence that dates back over 2,600 years. We suffer because we are grasping for things to be the way we want them. And simultaneously, we're pushing away the way things are. So between these two poles of desperately wanting things to be the way we want them and desperately pushing away the way things are, we're not actually alive. We're not optimized in presence. We're obsessing over a future that is simply imaginary. It's made of little more, as one of my teachers says little more than nothing.
Right. Right.
Right. What are these set of ideas about this disastrous future?
Mm.
It's the past. It's simply us just holding on to ideas that are little more than nothing and carrying them in our bodies and our minds into the present moment, constantly going, anything but this, anything but this. And when we come home to the present moment
Mm.
and soften the aggression towards that which is, and we loosen our grip on that which we want things to become, we are more optimized in presence, and we can meet the task at hand from a place of these background programs that are truly running the show.
Mm.
We've rebooted ourselves, and those background programs are softening and dissolving into the background. And here I am now with my inherent emotional intelligence, with my intellectual intelligence, with a balance between wisdom and compassion. And I'm meeting the needs of the business. I'm meeting the needs of my relationships. I'm meeting the needs ultimately of myself, who wants to be alive and deserves to be alive in deep presence.
Mm. What I'm hearing you say a lot of is, my prompt to your question was, are people coming to you with existential crises? And in some sense, your answer to me back was, well, again, that's simply just a tab open
That's exactly
next to your tasks, next to the kids, next to your relationship with your partner, next to, your relationship with the world and the rest of your team.
Let's open that tab for a second here.
Sure.
The existential crisis that, as of for instance, those on the right view as coming from the left, and those on the left view as coming from the right. The vast majority of us are simply just walking through life, meeting other human beings who want to be able to connect with one another. And then we remove ourselves into the distance of the screens, and we become the opposition, and we become us and them, and we become, right and wrong. But when we regroup and put our feet back on the ground and just simply look each other in the eyes again, we no longer see this fundamental right or wrongness. We see just another human being who was born into this body and desires happiness, just like we do, right? And the vast majority of our experience is not actually, those of us who are privileged in this world to receive the benefit of a culture that, like white males, right? We are in the pole position. White, cisgender, straight males are in the pole position. This whole system is built for us to be okay, right? When we are showing up, desperately holding on to our place in society, we are creating an oppositional force to that which needs our attention, right? We're not actually able to solve the grander issues of society together as one human family, coming at it from this protectionism place. And this actually creates more suffering in our internal world because we're missing the point. Missing the point. So I could go on for hours on that, and I don't want to get too political because I actually don't believe that that's useful. I think we got to simplify it down and recognize the shared space through which we're all moving, which is simply just we're being conditioned by the stories of our world. And those stories are engineered and fueled by this idea that division itself is monetizable.
So much on that. To the extent that you're interested in this, there's so much on this. There's Center for Humane Technology, many different things that are talking about the cross section of our technology today, especially with division. I want to come back in the workplace specifically, and meditation as a psychotechnology that allows you to, one, see the browser, and then two, see the tabs on the browser, and then just allow you to be in that place. let's talk about emotions, specifically, difficult emotions within the context of teams, other people, etc. It's one thing to say, yeah, my tabs, my to-do list, my sense of self, and all that comes with it. It's quite another to be in the context of your teams. And this is positive and negative emotions, by the way, but still, meditation has something to say, and mindfulness has something to say about the groundingness of dealing with difficult emotions, I think. So maybe you can talk a little bit about team dynamics and meditation. And I know that you do work within the context of teams as well, Fortune 500 companies, large organizations with sophisticated teams, and of course, because of that, sophisticated dynamics between their teams. Do you want to go into there, maybe through the realm of conflict between teams, and then
Yeah.
we can go from there, maybe relating between teams, because there's something to say about that as well. But maybe let's start the conflict just to keep it spicy a little bit.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. Conflict is not problematic.
Mhm.
Conflict is opportunity for deepening relationship and for collecting our energy around the attainment of the goal, right? The collective attainment of the goal. That being said, in order for us to be able to operate at an optimal level as an organization, as teams, as a direct report relating back to the person that they serve, and that person serving them back as
Mhm.
human beings, we need to take full and comprehensive responsibility for our own internal world. I am not responsible for your happiness, and you are not responsible for my happiness.
Mhm.
So the foundation of compassionate accountability, as one extraordinary teacher references it, is this notion of taking full responsibility for your own waves of emotion, right? The factors contributing to my emotional wave patterns are often significantly, it's a significant error to view them as somehow being your responsibility. Did I sleep
Mhm.
well last night? Right? Do I have trauma in my background? Right? Is that color something that is just too bright for my
Sure.
eye? I didn't, whatever the case might be, people are constantly showing up and pointing the finger outside of themselves with regard to their emotional upheaval. We must begin by taking full responsibility for our internal emotional states. Once we do that, and we each have shared language and technique with regard to understanding that we are responsible for our own internal waves, we then externalize our awareness to begin to notice the waves in other people,
Mhm.
right? So when an angry boss meets an angry employee, and those are two big waves of anger, what do we have? We have stormy seas. And
Mhm.
one or both need to just simply recognize that, oh, I'm activated. I've got a big wave of anger right now. And my ability to communicate while I'm in this activated state is diminished. So, how do I optimize? I just simply need to notice I'm activated,
Mhm.
angered. Anger is present,
Mhm.
right? And then I communicate around it in functional ways so that the person who also might be angry is recognizing that they're able to see my waves. When we start to see other's waves, we start to develop a state of compassion for the other. Um, and the other ceases being as problematic as they once seemed. Oh, you're causing me harm. No, I take full responsibility for me. I see you're triggered as well. Now let's create a space of compassionate accountability where we can communicate effectively
Mhm.
and address our energy towards the attainment of the goal.
Yeah,
I hope that's answering your question in some form.
I'm with you. I am. Let's go. You know, difficult emotions are difficult for very good reasons. They also have a biological significance, right? It's if you weren't scared, we probably didn't make it on the savannah if we weren't scared of the brushling of the leaves. But today, maneuvering those difficult emotions in the context of very collaborative environments across technologies that are bringing us together is a skill set, and I think it's a special skill set. We talk about soft skills, but then there's, of course, the hard skills are the soft skills. In some sense, the hard things are the soft skills in today. So let's leave that for a second. So much more to say about that. Let's talk a little bit about the other side of this, which maybe is the ability. What happens when teams come together and start collaborating, but speaking and onboarded into something like this? I mean, we're not creating ashrams and sitting sort of in meditation for 8 hours. Of course, we're still answering emails, we're delivering product, we're strategizing to make more money and all the rest of it and deliver great service to our clients. But I'm sure there's something about the interpersonal dynamics and the collectivity that comes along with this whenever this gets socialized. Can you say something a little bit about that?
Yeah. Again, with the foundation of shared language and technique around the recognition of one's own internal emotional patterns, right? That's called emotional intelligence. So where the techniques start to become really useful, and I have a grand vision for the power of corporations and organizations to amplify the advancement of humanity, right?
Sure. Yeah.
That's born out of the recognition of conflict as an opportunity for growth, right? So somewhere between I'm completely right and you're completely wrong lives this gray area of growth, of potentiality, of collaboration in the direction of if I'm in the middle way, if I live in between the absolute of right and the absolute of wrong, then I'm open to creativity. And I can start to actually hear that, oh my gosh, I built a team around me of brilliant people. That beautiful book, Team of Rivals, about Abraham Lincoln's cabinet, who his enemies, before they became his cabinet. In some ways, it's integrating the oppositional perspectives and seeing what's true and useful about that perspective, that if I were closed down to it, I would just blow past it. And I wouldn't be able to advance the cause of the organization at large, or the department, or the task at hand, right? What's true and useful about what that person is saying on the other side of this conflict? We have techniques to deal with that. And these techniques are quite simple and can be deployed on an as-needed basis throughout the workday. But it does take some training. It does take some training.
Yeah. We're sort of coming to maybe the last act of this. I only had you for 35 minutes, and we want to make sure that we save a little bit of this time for the meditation that we want to come in. Maybe the last part of this is, I hate to use the word practical, because in some sense, once you start meditating, you see it's the most practical thing that we in the world, effectively. You've always had it. You've just maybe needed to refine it in a way, and a mindfulness practice specifically. But putting common ways we come into this, practicalities in terms of getting started, especially within the context of bringing this into organizations. And it's one thing, of course, to say, Tim, help, and let's go from there. Maybe it's quite another to say, how do we socialize this within the organization? Do you have a little bit to say around, the onboarding and how to sort of like bring this, and then just how you've worked and seen this kind of get integrated into an organization? Is it small teams? Is it workshops? Is it kind of like retreats? Yeah, just speak to some of this, just bringing it in kind of thing.
From an organizational dynamics perspective, there are two primary ways to be able to implement simple basic practices. One is one-on-one training with C-suite and management. When we address and work with managers, we're creating an upstream solution to the disbursement of the techniques and the shared language. Because what are we training? We're actually just training the individuals to be able to deploy these techniques towards their departments. So that's like number one. Identify the key players as the framework upstream and allow them to become the teachers downstream. But also it's important to add in a simultaneous layer of group-based, techniques and training where we come together and it's available to the whole company. There's 100 people in this company, or 100 people in this department or whatever. The beauty of Zoom is everybody can come together for an hour and learn the same basic stuff that the upstream executives are learning in one-on-one sessions. This is transformational. From a kind of specific technique perspective, one thing that's really important to remember is you had referenced it early in this conversation, but the drain and the cognitive load that we all endure all day long, I'm going to bring this word back in. We need a dynamic flow between heavy activity and rest, heavy activity, rest, heavy activity and rest. What I instruct in the work that I do in my one-on-one work is to simply just check in every 90 minutes or so. And around every 90 minutes or so, the human system, the human mind, the cognitive load on the human mind starts to get so deep that we start to feel agitated. We start to get snippy. We start to get less optimized. So our attention to detail is decreased. Our ability to focus on the specificity of that particular part of the brief becomes diminished. So we're literally 3 or more minutes away from just simply re-optimizing the system, from closing out all of the tabs in a reboot mode and then reopening and having a choice. Which of these tabs do I want to open back up? And how do I want to engage with this particular tab from a place of optimization? And this can come in the form of simple mindfulness activities like just going and simply making a cup of tea and just making the cup of tea.
Right.
Check your email, right? Or watering a plant, right? Or just taking a walk around the room where you're just watching your breath and you're feeling your steps. And you do that for 3 minutes, you come back and your cognitive load is now re-energized. And you can go back into optimal condition to engage with the task at hand. And then 90 minutes later, if you've been working extra hard, you should probably do it again. If you want to maintain a long-term healthy relationship with your work life and your own internal world, this dynamic range of, heavy, dedicated activity paired with brief periods of rest, this is the pattern through which a person can optimize their lives.
Yeah. We've come to the point where you're going to lead us through a little reboot session right now. But, before we do, I think there's so much to be said here and so much has been said. But in a sense, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, the reminder here from all of this is that this is simply going with the way that our minds work. And this is 2,600-year-old technology through lots of trial and error that we have now, that modern science, specifically neurobiology, is now confirming that, yes, this is the manual, in a sense, of how your mind works. And this is the best practices and some of the best ways that you can simply tune up your mind to work in optimal performances. So this isn't anything extra. It's simply finding the owner's manual in a way and deploying some of the best practices. Is that a fair, crude, albeit crude way to sort of get to what we're talking about here?
I agree. Yeah. The thing is like, whether it's me or somebody else out there in the world. I don't love apps, by the way. I just think that they create more chaos for people.
Sure. Right.
One-on-one support and teaching is a way to shortcut the entire system. This psychotechnology is predictable. It's pattern based. It's measured against the ultimate pool of research, which is hundreds of thousands and millions of people who've been doing this for years.
A very long time. Yes. Right.
Yeah. It just works. So
yeah.
Try it, and that's the other thing about this practice that's great. Don't trust me. Don't trust Ben. Try it for yourself and see for 5 days, if you do 10 minutes of just watching your breath in the morning, what happens to the rest of your morning. Everything will change.
Let's give everybody a flavor of this. Maybe you want to lead us through a quick little meditation, then we'll go ahead and close things out.
Yeah, sounds great. So what we're not doing is removing ourselves from the world. This is not a practice where we have to become a monk in a cave and run away. We're actually optimizing our ability to show up in our lives and become truly alive in relationship to the experiences that we have and the people that we meet and the task at hand. In order to optimize that relationship, we must begin by acknowledging I'm not actually collected right now. My mind is a bit activated. I've got a lot of open tabs open. So noticing that is really the first step. Oh, I am activated. I'm a bit muddy. I'm a bit sluggish. So simply just notice that. And if it's possible for our listeners out there to simply close their eyes, you can do so now. And for the next 30 seconds or so, just check in with your body. Are there any obvious areas of tension that are easy to let go of? Perhaps the throat and the neck. And just relaxing into the body, feeling the weight of the body being supported by the ground and the chair. And wiggling the left toes, wiggling the right toes. Just noticing that you know that you're wiggling your left toes when you wiggle them. So wiggle them and notice. That's mindfulness of wiggling your toes. Wiggle the right toes. That's mindfulness of wiggling the toes. Start to notice the breath behind the belly button, breathing itself. There's the in-breath and the out-breath. You were able to notice the wiggling toes. Using that same tool, notice the breath behind the belly button, breathing itself. In particular, get interested in the out-breath. As low as you can feel it in the body, in the belly, in the hips. There is the in-breath and the out-breath. And then, of course, thinking comes and goes. Let's get interested in the out-breath in particular. Noticing how the end of the out-breath is a total restart, a total reboot moment, where the system self-regulates. It self-starts back up with the in-breath. So drawing your awareness down, down, down into the belly, into the out-breath. Just enjoy the out-breath. And this is the foundation of a practice that could go on for an hour, or it could happen for 3 minutes. Either way, this is a simple reboot. Using the body, using the breath as our object of awareness. especially the out breath, we begin to notice, there's space. There's relief from the constant activity. So as we wind down this meditation, start to focus on that spaciousness, the relief that you feel in the body, that pleasantness at the end of the out breath. And allow that to fill your awareness. As you come back to the room and open your eyes and allow that sensation of pleasantness at the end of the out breath to actually extend beyond the body, to meet the walls of the room, that sense of pleasant okayness. I'm just fine. Let it dissolve the body, let it dissolve the room, dissolve the building, and then come back to the body and you are alive. So that's our meditation.
Well, I just did that with you, and quite frankly, and I don't know how much that was, 3-4 minutes. I can definitely say that I'm ready for my next meeting. But more so than anything, there is a grounding. There is a way that we can sort of show up in the right way to each one, up to ourselves, to our colleagues, to the task at hand. And I think that there's better and worse ways to do it. And this is a tool that we have together that's always available for you. If you can sit, if you can close your eyes, and you can watch your breath, there's a lot to be had here. So, Tim, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Thanks for leading us through this. Tell us a little bit about where people can contact you. You're on LinkedIn. I know you have a website. We'll put all that in the show notes. But if somebody wanted to get in contact with you, easiest way?
Easiest way is to go to my website, timduffymeditation.com. You can also check me out on Meditating with Duffy on Instagram, or Tim Duffy on LinkedIn. But I am so grateful to you for loving this practice, and I see your work, and you are a beacon of presence in this world, and there's so many other folks that you're now introducing this practice to. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity to connect with you about it, my man. And high fives to everybody out there, right?
High fives all around. Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to close this space out. Thank you so much to everybody. And we will absolutely be back with another This Legal Life, where we take a look at the legal industry and the people who work inside of it and all the exciting things happening. So, Tim Duffy, thank you so much. We'll be back very soon. Take care, everybody. Cheers. Bye.